Hello there, welcome to another episode of World of Warships for Gunnery Titan. I have been playing this off and on all along. Some periods I might be playing it less than others, or have some gaps in the period, but I've been tipping away at it. However, I've been deeply dissatisfied with the effectiveness of my gunnery. That was one of the things that was I was finding most frustrating about the game at this point in time. My gunnery was terribly ineffective, particularly at long range, where I tried to stay as much as possible. I've also learned that you really try and stay with other capital ships if you're in a cruiser. Other cruisers, preferably a lot of other cruisers, or battleships, or something else. Destroyers don't really count. Destroyers are just so hard to hit that I think a lot of people just focus on capital ships if they see them, if there's one within range. So you could be accompanied by a number of destroyers, providing them with a kind of overwatch, but you need to be fairly good and know what you're doing, I think, to actually make it work. There is also the usual problem of not paying enough attention to the minimap and then not realizing that one is isolated and that multiple enemy capital ships are converging in your position, and you're about to be caught in a crossfire. The other thing is strategic hesitation is probably very fatal in this game as well, where you're not quite sure what it is you're doing and you kind of dither between one choice and another. The biggest problem with that is you tend to be caught in open water and not easily able to make it to behind an island. You should also always kind of try and keep an eye on what islands are around you and put as much land between yourself and the enemy fleet, except the selected bits that you want to shoot at, as possible, but that's easier said than done, and kind of an instinctive awareness of your position is probably one of the last things that will grow on a player. But to get back to what I was originally talking about, the effectiveness of fire, the ability to shoot the enemy target and actually have it hit more often than not, that I found an immensely frustrating exercise, because yeah, you know about lead of shot, but it's a bit like you're playing World of Tanks and you're only playing with howitzers with very low muzzle velocities. Think something like the Cruiser Mark II, where at 400 meters it might take 3.5 seconds of flight time for the shell to arrive. That kind of thing. Except here it's 10 kilometers and it takes 6 seconds for the shell to arrive. Problem is the ship can be quite a lot of places other than where it was when you shot at it when the shell arrives 6 seconds later. There are in fact captain skills to let you know when somebody has opened fired on you or launched a salvo in your direction, and I am pretty convinced that there are destroyer players out there who can react as soon as a salvo is launched and change course before the fall of shot comes anywhere near them. They're gone somewhere else. So is there anything in the game that will help you to shoot better? Well, actually there are some tools that you are provided with that will, I think, enable your shooting to improve by a considerable amount. Now, I haven't completely tested it out myself, but I am trying to use it, and I think my shooting has improved already. Now, it is possible that I'm talking pure nonsense and that what I'm actually doing is just the equivalent of magic, that you believe, a superstition, that if you do a certain thing, you sacrifice, chicken before the start of the battle and look at its entrails, you can tell whether you're going to win or not, that sort of stuff. However, in the one or two videos that I've watched, because YouTube is the place you go to nowadays to find out stuff that you don't know how to do, or at least one of the places you can go to, particularly if you want it explained to you in nice pictures and simple language. So what I've learned is the key is the reticle, as you can see up here in front of me, and apparently this reticle is delimited. The little notches are in seconds. So if a ship is moving 20 kilometers perpendicular to the line of camera, then the ship will cover, the front of the ship will cover each increment in a second. And if you point the number your targeting reticle, the number of seconds in front of the bow of the ship that it takes the shot to fall in that direction, then you should be able to hit the ship that you're targeting. Given that at 9 or 10 kilometers the average battleship is doing about 20 knots and the time of flight of shot is about 6 seconds at least for what I'm playing with, that seems to be fair enough and not bad. And some cruisers will go faster, maybe up to half as fast again. So you just multiply by 1.5 and you get a reasonable figure. But reading or watching, like I said, the YouTube videos and reading the comments is also quite useful, because a lot of people who know more or maybe as much as the YouTuber will comment in the comments, and they've made a couple of statements which seem to be true so far, but I hadn't had a lot of time to test it. But one of them is that you can change the crosshair type to dynamic, which means that your zoom level, it's scaled according to your zoom level, so that what I've said is true at maximum zoom is also true at all the other intermediate zooms. It is also the case that if you're looking at an enemy ship zoomed in, looking through the targeting reticle, you can actually see, if you press Alt, you can see stuff like the ship's velocity, left or right relative to your camera angle, and the distance to the ship and the time on target for your shells. They're the three numbers around the centre. If you go into your settings and set alternative interface mode to full, they're permanently displayed when you zoom in. Now it does warn you that it can affect your gameplay, but I've not noticed. Now I don't have a bleeding edge machine. I have a reasonably decent machine. It's not that old either, 3 years old maybe. It was spec'd to be decent then. It wasn't bleeding edge or anything like that, but that's kind of the spec that it was, and it seems to perform fine. Now I've only tried it for a game or two, and I need to sort of remember to do it continuously. But it seems to me to be effective, and it seems to be an approach that's working to gunnery that I'm finding effective anyway. Whether it's based on a myth or reality, I don't know for certain. But so far, and certainly in terms of the ships that I've been trying it on, like the Chester, it seems to be a viable approach. And everything they're telling me, of course, makes sense. It doesn't sound like complete nonsense. We will watch a few more videos and play a few more games and see how we get on. It's worth getting multiple opinions on this thing, but I'm sure there are other ways of doing it and other ways of estimating where you need to point the reticle in order to get the shot falling where you want it to, and tips and tricks for shooting down various categories of ship. The biggest single category that's most difficult to shoot down are destroyers, or sinkers, hit, because they move very, very fast. They're much smaller than other kinds of ships, so the thing that I'm telling you there has to be taken with kind of a grain of salt. And I am, as I said, fairly convinced that a captain of a destroyer with the incoming fire warning, skill trained, probably can react after an enemy ship is fired, turn his ship and be out of the way and fall a shot before ever, after it's left the gun barrel, so to speak, and before it arrives. Now, as you can see here, I have fallen into a trap of my own making. I got so fixated on the cruiser that was around the headland that I forgot that the enemy battleship and one of the destroyers weren't terribly far away. And I drove my ship into a crossfire between the two of them. You can't see the cruiser at the moment, but he's there and he's firing at me. He's just popped up on the minimap. But I'm also taking fire from a battleship who has I have his undivided attention, and therefore I'm in serious, serious trouble. And I think the cruiser keeps setting me on fire, and there's a destroyer in on the act as well. So, but the destroyer doesn't seem to be bothering me as much as the other two ships. And now I'm gone, destroyed by George Stanley in the enemy battleship. Now, I switched the camera to one of our destroyers and basically followed him around for the rest of the game, but he didn't always do interesting things, so I've edited out little bits to make it more dynamic and more interesting. Now my demise left both sides pretty much even, with the same number of ships of the same types, and we had roughly the same amount of points. We were exactly the same amount of points, and we both have a cap circle, and we're both generating the same amount of points to win the game. However, the last known position of one of the enemy destroyers is just north of their cap circle, because we did have, by the time I died, we had an extra destroyer, and it obviously lost its fight with the enemy destroyer, but they were up around that area. So that destroyer is effectively isolated, and it might have been, and I know the battleship was urging our players to do it, for some member of our team to go and cap the enemy base. Now at this point in the game, the enemy destroyer is capping our base, but we have a cruiser heading to defend our cap. So at the moment we have our cruiser heading towards the enemy, our cap circle, and we have the destroyers engaged with the enemy cruiser here. Now I think this guy's fired his torpedoes too late, because I don't think that enemy cruiser is going to live long enough for those torpedoes to reach him. And in fact, this guy makes a number of torpedo strikes that I thought were of questionable utility. Although, who am I to criticise? I've never really fired a torpedo in this game so far. I don't know much about torpedo targeting. I'm not going to get involved in it because gunnery targeting is challenging enough at the moment, and we'll probably do battleships before we attempt to do something more complicated like torpedoes. Aircraft carriers must be like learning to play an entirely different game. So now we're a ship up. That does give us a bit of an advantage, but I've seen these advantages turned around. Destroyers are particularly problematic. They're both hard to hit. They're hard hitting, especially with torpedoes, and they can be effective against even of the destroyers with torpedoes, because unless you have technology boosts, which don't occur until later on in the game, you can get caught fairly flat-footed by a torpedo strike just coming in. It arrives, you don't notice it until the last minute. And if you're already busy, should we say, engaged in gunnery sniper view, then by the time you've got out of that, looked around to see where the torpedoes are coming from, it could also be game over already. So this particular destroyer that I'm following has a Long Jiang, has concentrated on the enemy destroyer, and the battleship at the moment is focusing on him as well. Presumably they can't see the others of our fleet. The other battleship is just probably at the back of an island, it's coming around the island shortly, and our other destroyer is just coming around the back of an island also. That's another area I find myself incredibly weak in the game. The use of islands and terrain to hide behind and to lurk around when you slow down. I've made a reasonable fist of it in this game, but in a lot of other games I've completely messed up taking advantage of the island situation. I either spend too long behind the island and don't arrive at the situation in time to make a timely intervention to keep my comrades alive, or I come around the side of the island too fast and I don't get much opportunity to take advantage of the cover. The timing my stop so that I'm in cover, or at least obscured from a lot of the enemies, is something I'm finding very difficult to do, but I suppose hopefully I might get better at it with practice. So you can see here that our cruiser has reached around cap circle, so he's stopping the other destroyer from completing the cap, and he's managed to get some kind of a partial reset. And our two remaining destroyers are focusing fire on the enemy destroyer over here. Still, there's no guarantee that they will sink this destroyer before he gets a torpedo strike off. Although he doesn't seem to be making any. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen any torpedoes in the water by him recently. Somebody has gotten a hit on him there, and another one, and it looks like he's gone. So that is him out of the way. So now it's just the enemy battleship remaining. Against two destroyers, I wouldn't fancy the chances of a battleship. Against a battleship, a cruiser and two destroyers, I don't think he's going to last, and that's him gone as well. So now we have a victory. So let's see how we do. We got victory, 56,000 credits, 24,274 damage, 2 Citadel hits. Came number 3 by experience, and we took 18,400 damage, so we did 23,274. which is more than we received, so actually I'm pretty happy with that result. So hopefully I will be able to continue to improve my gunnery and actually have some pretty decent games to show you. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and a share. Feel free to comment. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all soon. Bye for now.